Everyone's watching the Odyssey for the monsters. Matt Damon as Odysseus, decade-long journey home, a fractured household waiting on the other end. Now, what if I told you that it's actually the best investing lesson ever written? If you strip away Cyclops and the sea monsters, and you've got the oldest investing lesson in existence, written a few thousand years before anyone had a Bloomberg terminal. Odysseus doesn't win because he's the strongest guy in the room. That was Achilles, and Achilles is dead. Odysseus wins because he's patient. He's unrecognizable when he needs to be, and he's smart enough to build systems that protect him from himself. Now, I know this lesson personally. I earned it in 2008, and my body sent me the invoice. Here's the scene everyone remembers. Odysseus wants to hear the siren song, the one that's wrecked every sailor dumb enough to even listen. So he doesn't trust his willpower, and he ties himself to the mast and orders his crew to plug their ears and tells them explicitly, no matter what I beg you to do not untie me. No, that's not discipline. That's smarter than discipline. He knew that future him, drunk on the siren song, would make a terrible decision. So he built a system to override that version of himself before it ever even showed up. So in 2008, I didn't have a mast yet. I was still building my rules for engagement. I was still figuring out the frameworks I now teach. So when the market actually started falling apart during that time, I did what most people with no rope tying them to anything did. So I reacted, I white knuckled, I swung for the fences with conviction, with nothing underneath it. So that stress didn't stay in my head, it landed in my stomach, literally. So I developed a stress ulcer bad enough that my body gave out in public at a party in front of people I respected. So that's not a badge of honor. That's what happens when you're improvising through a crisis instead of already being tied to something solid. That's the same year Buffett was publicly telling people to get greedy while others were fearful. I read that line, and at the time, had zero system in place to actually act on it. So that's every risk framework I've built since. So Thrive isn't there to make you feel something. It's there so that when the market's screaming and your gut wants you to sell everything or to chase the next hot IPO, you've already tied yourself to the mast. My great market signal score isn't a vibe check. It's actually the rope. You don't fight temptation in the moment. Nobody's strong enough for that. So you remove the choice in advance while you're still thinking clearly. If your investing plan depends on you staying calm during a 15% drawdown in the markets, then think of it. You don't really have a plan. What you have is hope. I know because I've tried hoping my way through 2008 and my body kept the receipts. So Odysseus takes a decade to sail a trip that should have taken just weeks. Every step of the way, there's a shortcut, a comfortable island, tempting, a tempting detour. He takes almost all of them, and it costs him. Sounds like anyone chasing quarterly returns? Hmm? The market rewards the guy who compounds quietly for a decade a lot more than the guy who took every shortcut and eventually washed up alone. Long-term wealth isn't built on the shortest route. It's built on surviving that boring middle without cutting corners that feel smart in the moment and look idiotic in year 8. Now, when Odysseus in the movie finally gets home, he doesn't walk in and start swinging. He disguises himself first as a beggar. He watches, he listens, he figures out who's loyal, who's rotted, what's actually happening in his own house before he actually reveals anything. This is the part founders or some founders and some executives sometimes skip. You come back from a break, a pivot, a new market, a new negotiation, and you want to walk in with authority immediately. Odysseus shows you that the better move is to come in quiet, reassess before you reveal your hand, and you let people underestimate you for exactly as long as that is useful. While Odysseus is gone, the suitors move into his home and slowly consume everything he's built, not in one dramatic night, slowly, meal by meal, over the years, while no one's watching closely enough to stop it. I lived a quieter version of this myself right after 2008. I survived the crash, but what I didn't do was position myself to actually capture the bull run that followed. While I was busy recovering, licking my wounds, and finally building the systems I should have had going in, the recovery moved on without me collecting what I'd earned by surviving it. So no one stole that upside from me, especially in one dramatic moment. It just quietly slipped past me while I was distracted rebuilding with the same way the suitors didn't storm the house. They just moved in slowly while the owner's attention was somewhere else. So that's every neglected portfolio. That's every business a founder stopped watching because a new shiny thing showed up. That's every team that quietly rotted because leadership was busy. Value doesn't usually get stolen in a crash. It gets eaten slowly in the recovery while you're distracted, simply catching your breath. Now, there's a part there wherein Odysseus has to sail between a monster and a whirlpool. So both routes cost him something, and there's no clean path through. So he picks the lesser loss and keeps on moving. That's what you call risk management. So new investors keep looking for the option with zero risk. Doesn't exist. Every real decision, every real allocation is choosing which risk you're actually willing to eat, not whether you'll eat one at all. The pros aren't the ones who avoid risk. They're the ones who choose which risk on purpose. There's also about Circe. Circe isn't just a temptress. She's comfort in and of itself. An island where things finally feel easy after years of hardship. And Odysseus stays there for far longer than he should actually have done. So that's every good quarter, every fund that finally beat the benchmark, every founder who had one good year and started believing his own hype. Comfort isn't the reward, it's the trap that looks like the reward. So we're living in a culture built for the opposite of everything Odysseus actually represents. Everyone wants to win today. The post that goes viral this week, the trade that pays off by Friday. Nolan didn't invest $200 million in a movie because monsters are cool. He made it because right now in 2026, patience is the actual rebellion. The market doesn't care how fast you can get somewhere. It rewards whoever survives the boring middle with their identity, their discipline, and their capital intact. Odysseus didn't get home fast. He got home whole. I got home too eventually, just later, and with a story about a party I still can't easily joke about. That's the whole game. Tie yourself to the mast before the sirens start singing. Build the system before the crisis, not during it. So I'll see you around. Stay integrated. Stay ahead.